Chapter 5. Hey, do you work here? What a loaded question, I thought with a pause. Now, technically, I work here, as in, I get paid by this company, in exchange for reading the forums and drinking Mountain Dew all day. At least, that's what my brain has rationalized. I understand that it is really a buyer's market on people with my specific talents, laziness and/or caffeine addiction, so I better play it cool when questioned. I nodded yes to the man who had asked the question. "Cool, dog," he replied, whipping out a clipboard. I glanced around the dark parking lot, wondering why the fuck I had chosen this time in particular to come out for a quick cigarette. It was about 7:30 at night, I was the last person in the office, and I had thought it might be a good idea to sneak out for one last smoke in the cool night air before heading out. I normally don't stay past 4 or 5. But today I was supposed to meet my wife for dinner at a restaurant near my office, so I figured might as well stay at work and fuck around on the forums until the time came. "What do you need?" I asked the man, pretending to be in a hurry. I'm not horribly happy dealing with, random people in general. Especially when they want something. "I got this delivery here for you guys," he replied, thrusting the clipboard in my face. He gestured back towards his very old panel truck, idling next to the loading dock. "Shipping and receiving is open until like 5, man. I think you should come back tomorrow morning." "Oh, come on man, I'm already running late," he whined, pushing the clipboard further into my face. I scanned his clothing and the truck, yet was unable to figure out what company he may work for. There was, of course, the chance that he was a spy. I took one last drag off of my cigarette and was about to reply when he cut me off. "But it's Christmas, man. It's December 3rd. My kids don't know the difference," the man almost pleaded. At this point, I started to get a little uneasy about the situation. I just nodded slowly and took the clipboard. The man smiled and pointed to the line where I had to sign. And I accepted the delivery as Alexander G. Bell, because I'm not retarded enough to put my name on anything when it comes to this company. In short order, I was presented with 3 boxes, ranging from very large to very small. As the man pulled away, I looked at the address labels, which were haste-attached post-it notes with masking tape. They were intended for a co-worker who had been released back in October over a theft scandal. I opened the door and started to kick the boxes inside, weighing my options. There was no return address, no shipping label, and no indication of whom the boxes were delivered by. Crazy jittery guy driving a shitty truck. Anthrax or diamonds, I was clueless as to the contents, but curiosity ended up getting me in the end, and I maneuvered all the boxes into my empty office. The thought of leaving these boxes outside the door of receiving crossed my mind, but they hardly seemed important, and were intended for somebody who nobody had seen in months. I proceeded to tear into the largest of the 3 boxes. Nothing could prepare me for what lay within. Globes. Not just one globe, but 4 globes. And a note. A cryptic note. "Hope you have a glorious holiday." Yes. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, over. 4 spherical representations of the planet Earth, all sitting on my office floor, accompanied by a note of questionable origin. I slowly moved over to the middle-sized box, wondering what the hell could possibly be inside. More globes. 2 to be exact, yet this time without a note. Now, I don't work in any industry that involves high school history teachers, cartographers, or maniacal dictators. The purpose of the gigantic, plastic planets was lost on me at the time, but I continued in my opening process. As I tore into the smallest box, I was greeted with yet another note, this one a bit more lengthy. "Figured you could use this stuff for a party. We haven't talked in a while, make sure to message me. Candace." Inside the box were dozens upon dozens of packets. Packets of seeds. Wildflower seeds. And, of course, combs. 14 ace combs. I stood up and backed slowly away from the loot, plopping down in my chair. A cold winter wind shook the pane of glass behind me as I stared blankly down at the assortment of party items on the floor. globes, seeds, combs, party. I needed a drink. But first, I needed some kind reassurance that I was still sane. Just the slightest comforting voice that said to me, "Hey, you're okay, man. It's the world that is fucked up." I tried my wife on her cell phone, no luck. Without thinking, I dialed the number to my old office down south. Now, I don't really work anymore, but there was a time that I was a manager of a very large department at this company. For years I hired, trained, molded, and sometimes fired dozens and dozens of people. Relationships were formed, relationships that carried on to this day. I still get emails and phone calls from some of my old employees, asking for my advice on certain things. I knew that one of my dearest work friends was on the night shift that evening in our corporate office, so I dialed his direct line. "Hey, I've got a bit of a problem," I started. "I've come into possession of a goodly number of, random items." "Like what?" my friend asked. "Oh, like, globes." There was a bit of laughter on the other end of the phone, then a quick reply, probably for the management types there. "Everybody has a globe." This made me think. I closed my eyes and thought back to as many offices that I could remember in this company, and a startling revelation was had. Everybody had a globe, but I never realized it until the motherlode of earthly scale modeling was dumped into my lap. I mean, really, how often do you notice a globe? When you see one, do you ever stop and wonder why it's there? A decoration of sorts, or something more sinister? "Hey, I've got a question for you." I was snapped back to reality by the change of subject. My friend went into a long situation about a problem that he was having with a certain aspect of his job, the job that is done by the department that I used to run. I listened intently, then suggested a course of action that, although somewhat against the norm, would alleviate the problem in a timely and orderly fashion. My friend thanked me and hung up, and I walked out the door, leaving the random item sitting on the floor of my office, vowing to deal with it at a later date. 5 days later. There's only so much that you can do with a globe, I had come to find out. I had taken one of them out and placed it upon my desk, and had been staring at it off and on for a day and a half. So far, the uses for a globe, as discovered by me through intense testing, were: spin real fast. Use your index and middle finger to run across the equator. Try to step only on land, for added difficulty points. Play President of the United States. Spin globe real fast, close your eyes, point to place on globe. Repeat 3 times, declare the 3 indicated locations as your own personal axis of evil, minus Spain, Arizona, and the Indian Ocean. As I sat, slack-jawed, staring at the globe, something truly horrible happened. My door swung open, and standing at the entrance to my office, was a vice president. I knew the man well, and had worked in close conjunction with him numerous times in my old position. I hadn't seen nor heard from him since my move to the remote satellite location in Detroit. I had no idea he was even in the state, let alone the office this morning. I was unaware there was an all-employee management meeting in town. I nearly froze in fear as my right hand subconsciously scrambled for the mouse, minimizing everything on my computer screen. "Mr. Moonshine," he began, "how's it going? Long time, no see." "Very well, sir," I managed to form the reply. My eyes darted left and right, searching for anything incriminating in my office. Aside from OSHA posters from wall to wall, and a big pile of seeds, combs, and globes in the corner, everything looked almost professional. "I've got a problem," he began. I gestured towards a chair across from my desk, snapping back as quickly as possible into whatever management mode I still had encoded in my brain. "Well, it's everybody's problem. I think you know who I'm referring to." I shook my head. "Mr. Dipshit," he continued, and I nodded. Mr. Dipshit was technically my old boss when I worked at the corporate office, but he was the epitome of everything that you would not want in an executive position. He was clueless as to the specifics of the job, poorly groomed, racist, a liar and a crook, who took personal vendettas to the next level. He also despised me from the start, as I was constantly making him look bad. Because of my longevity at the company, I was friends with quite a few people in senior management, and this always frightened him. Instead of coming to him, most would go behind his back and come to me, so he had been gunning for me the entire time that we worked together. However, given my current situation, I figured that he had all but forgotten about me. I was quite wrong though. Mr. Dipshit calls me yesterday and says that you are going behind his back and trying to purposely sabotage his operation. I blinked slightly and asked, he said what? Mr. VP smiled and continued, oh, yeah, he's up in a roar. He swears that you're sitting here running the company from your desk. I attempted to stifle a giggle. Mr. VP, who hates Mr. Dipshit as much as the next guy, nodded and said, and I told him that I almost guarantee that you run his department from your desk. I've talked to some of his people down there, and they all insist that you're always there to help them out, whereas most of the time they can never find him. I sensed that the conversation might be taking a bad turn, so I tried to turn it back. I never try to run anything. If people need help, I give that assistance. We're all on the same team, sir. But, if Mr. Dipshit feels like I'm encroaching, I'll back off and let it be. Mr. VP raised his hand and shook his head. No, no. I want to make sure that things run right. I know that you're horribly busy up here, but I want to make sure that you're available for consultation, if need be. I nodded, pretending that, in addition to my tremendous workload of posting on the forums, I would sacrifice and answer a couple of emails a day, then asked, but what about Dipshit? Don't worry about Dipshit, VP replied, snickering. He's got to harden for you, Moonshine. In more ways than one. I tried not to show any emotion as my brain tried to rationalize that statement. He couldn't have meant what I thought that he meant, right? I mean, there's no way that a troll-like human being who's never been introduced to a Q-tip or nose hair trimmer could be. No. 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 Cleanse my thoughts. Hey, I replied, my worried eyes betraying my true feelings. I knew I could count on you, Moonshine. Mr. VP said, as he stood up and walked towards the door. He stopped for a second, looking back at me. What is your title? I snapped back to reality as soon as possible, and tried the soft answer, still a manager. VP nodded, then pointed at my desk. I'll make sure you get the management globe, he promised, then walked out the door. Epilogue. My globe with the executive wooden stand appeared a few days later, and now occupies a place of honor in my small office. Every once in a while, when I leave my door open, people will walk by and glance in, and, although nearly imperceptible, I can tell that their posture straightens up a bit when their eyes come across that piece of furniture, that simple little object which says to the world I am a monster of the corporate world. Within 20 seconds I can tell you the capital of Madagascar. Now, fetch me some coffee. The 6 original globes still sit, stacked up, beside my bookcase. What to do with them remains a mystery. I'm absolutely positive that one is earmarked for my secret Santa, but as for the other 5, perhaps I'll just leave them on random people's desks at work. If the secretary in accounting seems to be having a bad day, she may just come in the next day to a bright, shiny, blue ball of plastic sitting on her desk. And maybe, just maybe, that will be all the motivation needed for her to continue striving on in the corporate jungle. The seeds and combs have all been distributed by random sampling. In the spirit of the season, I went through our Microsoft Outlook address box and picked the random names of employees all across America, and sent them manila envelopes filled with either seeds or combs, or a combination thereof. No return address, just little notes like Merry Christmas, here's a comb, and Season's greetings. The poor man's Chris Kringle, I surely am, spreading wildflowers and well-groomed hair company-wide. The phone rang bright and early this Monday morning. I finished the paragraph that I was reading on ESPN.com, and went for the phone. Mr. Moonshine. Came the voice from a cell phone. Mr. Vice President. I replied. Just checking up on you. Anything negative from Mr. Dipshit? Now, I had received a grand total of 1 email since the last conversation, and had solved that minor problem in a grand total of 5 minutes. But, he didn't have to know that. Well, there's a lot of stuff, but I'm keeping it in line, sir. Very good, continue running the company, Moonshine, he said with a laugh. Will do, I replied, and hung up the phone. I thought for a second, looked down at my cell phone, and proceeded to run the company in the most productive fashion that I could think of. I beat my high score in Snake,